For a little bit, a few seconds, and okay. All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Real Talk. I have my friend here with me, Cameron. He is a protester, an activist. He is an awesome musician, and he is a great D&D expert. One of the few that I know.
Thank you for that.
um, but he has been protesting, and shocker, he is also white. Um, so if you guys were here for the last two episodes, you will notice that I talked to a few of my protester friends, and one of my friends who is a black comedian, and we talked about how it was growing up as a minority, how it was, the struggles we faced, and then I haven't personally protested. I know I'm going to be going to my first protest this Saturday on the 19th, right? That's the one you sent me?
Um, yeah, it's a Friday.
It's a Friday. So I'll be going on the Friday. Yeah. But so I haven't actually been out there and stuff like that, but I've seen the videos, I've been doing the research, and obviously I've been doing the charities on here. So I wanted to talk to my friend Cameron here what it's like being a protester, being white within the community, and making your voice heard and showing your support during this crucial time in America's history. Oh, Cameron, can you hear me again?
Yeah, I can hear you. So
Okay.
was that a question?
Yeah, no, I'm asking you like what it's like being white, being out there in the community, out protesting, and still making your voice heard, and what is that like? Like, what has that
Well,
experience been for you?
it's been pretty rewarding. Honestly, I don't feel like my race has much to do with it. At least when I'm there at the protests. I mean, nobody's like pointing you out as like, oh look, there's the white guy. Because there's people of all races at these protests.
Mm-hmm.
Um, uh, I think it's important that the focus remains on black voices and voices of color at the
Mm-hmm.
rallies in particular. So I haven't like gotten up and tried to give a speech, on although I have plenty I could say on the subject of white privilege and that sort of thing. Um, but I think it's more important just to show up at the rallies and just be there as an ally, just physically. And then what you can do with your own voice at home is combat those people in your life who have those more degenerate views. And we all know some people in our spheres
Mm-hmm.
uh, that aren't necessarily with the times when it comes to matters of race.
Yeah.
Uh,
What? Sorry to interrupt. Uh, but I was actually curious, what have been some of those conversations like for you? Because for me, it has been very jarring to talk to certain people, especially within my own family and with other people within the community of how is this still a thing? How is Black Lives Matter still such a big issue? How is like talking about this such a big issue?
well,
Um,
in my experience, most white people, even if they are racist, they're not going to admit it. They want to act like they're not, and they always you can always tell these people because they jump quickly to their own defense, and
mhm.
they list all the reasons why they're not racist. And it's like, well, you shouldn't have to list all these reasons. The only reason you're going into all this is deflection. Because you're talking about how you don't support Black Lives Matter or whatever.
Mhm.
Um, uh, these protests have shifted and changed, also to focus quite heavily on defunding police departments
Mhm.
across the United States, and that 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 change in message is also kind of caused a split in the community, because you've got some original Black Lives Matter protesters don't necessarily agree with that shift in message, and they want to keep the focus on Black Lives Matter. Whereas there are other voices, even voices of color in the community,
Mhm.
that believe that this is like a logical evolution of the movement. So anytime there's not like a central governing body for a group, there's that chance for that ideological shift to cause splintering. And so I think it's important that we all kind of stay on the same page.
If I may, because what I've been seeing, or what I've been like watching and reading and talking with some of the people, is it has become this multifaceted movement where it is Black Lives Matter, but it's not just Black Lives Matter, because Pride came around and it became Black Trans Lives Matter. It became defund the police. It became we understand, and it seems like the Black Lives Matter movement, or at least its founders and the people running most of the major protests and legislation within the city councils, understand that this is not just Black Lives Matter issue, it's a systemic issue. It's an issue of white superiority that was built into the very foundation of America, and it is time for that white superiority to change, and it is time that we make everything equal, we make everything fair, we create systems and put things in place.
Right. And the tricky thing with a lot of that is there aren't like overtly racist laws really like we used to have, like that's straight up where the law is discriminating. It's more about the human element of how the law is applied to people. Because it's not like we have written in our books that you can do this if you're white, but you can't do this if you're black. But it all comes down to enforcement. Like, I've been caught red-handed in the commission of a felony, and the officer lets me go with a misdemeanor. Like, straight up reduced, you know what I mean? Like, on his end, chose not to charge me with the greater thing. If I'd been black or Hispanic, would I have gotten away with that? Probably not.
Yeah.
Probably federal pen. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's the sort of privilege that white people have that we shouldn't take for granted, and that's the sort of thing that people are speaking out against. Sorry, I live next to a train track, so
You're good. You're completely like. Actually, I didn't even know there was a train. I have an AC running on the side of me, so it's all good. Yeah, no, that was very well worded. I couldn't agree more. But I have a question for you, because I want to backtrack to making your voice heard within the white community and stuff like that. I've come across this, but I don't want to say privileged, but I've been able to combat it because of the color of my skin, because of my ethnicity and stuff like that. But some white people have combated me. Some people who are for the Black Lives Matter movement, but have kind of backtracked into saying that, well, Black Lives Matter, but this, or Black Lives Matter, but the looting, Black Lives Matter, but also Blue Lives Matter, or Black Lives Matter, but they shouldn't be protesting, they should be, being peaceful about this, or what have you.
right.
And one of the things, and I don't want to name her name because I don't want to draw attention to these people, but I believe you know who I'm talking about.
Oh, everybody knows who you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, CW.
Yeah, well, it's becoming more and more people and more conspiracy theorists. And I'm getting more and more links as I have these conversations. People are sending me links of basically black people or people of color or indigenous descent basically coming out and saying that we are reverting to our lowest denominator, that we are giving credit, or we are giving we are catering to the lowest of the low of our own race, or they're trying to discredit the Black Lives Matter movement or stuff like that. Now, me, along with the rest of the other people, call these people coons. If, for those of you who do not know what a coon is, it is a person of color or a person of an ethnic background that support fascist or white superiority and go against their own race in the midst of progress. It was adopted by the black community, but also other communities as well. On 2005, before that, it was used as a term to describe a black person or a person of color because they would be thieves like raccoons, hence the name. And so we've kind of flipped that term to say someone who is just part of the white all lives matter, white superiority movement. I've been able to combat it that way. I've also been able to inform those people, like, hey, this is why, and this is why it's not racist. Because they always try to say, well, you're racist if you don't support this person. It's like, well, no, this is an issue. And yes, it is about color, but this person's discrediting these minority people. And I want to know, for you, how do you deal with that?
So the thing about those individuals, and I'm talking about the influencers right now, not the people that parrot their beliefs.
Yes.
So, like, race crosses party lines. I mean, sure, you think most people of color vote Democrat, lean to the left, but a lot of them are right leaning as well. And the right side speaks out against something, their whole side's going to speak out against it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's often what these people are, where they're coming from, I think, at least from their own perspective, like subconsciously. It's their political beliefs. They're aligning with their political beliefs, not necessarily against their own race. On that note, I've had, like I've said, we've seen white people use these videos as justification for their own racism.
Yes.
And that is the problem. I've seen one of my very wise friends called this phenomenon digital blackface. The idea of like you're not brave enough to say this, with your own white voice, but you're going to post this video of this black speaker saying these things,
Mm-hmm.
And then saying, oh, well, see, they think so, they believe it, so I'm not racist. It must be true, And what the core of a lot of these issues is, like, oh, George Floyd was a thug, he was a criminal, blah blah blah. Why are we mourning him? He's not a martyr. Point is, it's not American justice to execute a man on the street with your knee. Like, that's not the way our justice system works. Even if he was a thug, even if he'd and he was accused of counterfeiting a $20 bill. Okay, it's not like he's committed a violent crime. But even if he had committed a violent crime in that moment, the officer still would not have been justified in that action, because that's not how our justice system works. So all these people that say, "Oh, he was a criminal," I saw this video of a Trump rally. Black Lives Matter speaker was given the floor
Mm-hmm.
by the people running the rally, which is progressive action. So I applaud them for that. With the crowds heckling like, "Oh, he was a thug, he was a criminal," doesn't matter. That's not the point.
Mm-hmm.
Point is, justice was not done there.
Yes. And I think one of the best things I saw this morning when I woke up, of Facebook of all places, Rayshard Williams. So, for those of you who don't know, there was another incident that just happened recently, where there was a drunk black man. He was sleeping in his car, and people were trying to say, like, the biggest argument, it was going back and forth, but someone, and I was just watching. I was all like, I was tired. I just woke up. I was like, I'm not in the mood to argue with anyone today. But someone said it best. Like, what the person said was, well, he sentenced his own death, right? He took the taser, he took the baton, he tased the officer and ran away. He was resisting arrest. And someone replied to that saying, well, okay, lethal force should be the last thing, and only if the officer's life was in danger. The officer's life was not in danger. An officer's job is to be a peace officer, be the best of what our society has to give. And only if their life is in danger should they have to resort to violence. Not even the military can shoot until they're shoot upon. And in the end, they are not the executioner. They do not have the right to kill. It's part of the job. If an officer dies, that's what they signed up for. It is not their job to get killed. It's not their job to kill. it is in the line of duty that they may get killed, and it is unfortunate that it is. But they have the option of not being a police officer. Then, if they don't want to risk their life to be a police officer, don't be a police officer. But if a bouncer can deal with a guy with a knife, a guy with a gun, a guy causing problems at a club with no weapons, no guns, no tasers, no nothing, but just his physical force or his ability to de-escalate the situation, why can't our officers do the same?
Right. So I do believe in the right to legal self-defense with deadly force if presented with deadly force. However, I do not believe that Rashad Armory was a lethal threat to the officer, running away, firing a taser wildly behind his back. I don't think that was a lethal threat. I don't think that was a justified shooting. I do think, there has to be some legal grounds for lethal force. Like if a man has a gun and he says, "I will kill you," you should probably be justified in shooting that guy, provided you yourself are armed. I think American police officers resort to their gun too often.
And too quickly.
Too quickly, correct. I think part of that has to do with their training. From what I understand, they're taught, in the academy that every potential stop is a life and death situation. And I don't know if they should approach it from that angle. I don't know. How many lives that approach really saves, in the long run. I think a lot of people join the force. I mean, I'm not an officer. I've never been in the academy. My only interactions with police have been as a civilian, and on either the side of the victim or the criminal. You know what I mean? Either or. Mm-hmm. So I've been on both sides of cops. But I know there's got to be some cops out there who just straight up join the force just because they want to see some action. They want to be like military light. You know what I mean? Like that dude who killed Daniel Shaver. If you're familiar with that one, the guy literally had "you're fucked" like engraved in on his ejection port for his rifle. Like,
that's ridiculous.
I mean, yeah, clearly that's not like he wasn't intending to use that weapon to defend his life. You know what I mean? Like, when you put that sort of thing on your gun, like it shows a certain intent for that weapon. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. I don't know, at least a certain disregard for the purpose of that weapon.
Well, it shows mindset of what the purpose is.
Right. It shows the mindset of the person.
That
one was hard. Daniel Shaver. That's a tough one.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what shocks me is the overall ability to and disregard, because I've seen officers when it's a white guy with a gun and they are like fully loaded and ready to shoot at the police are very hesitant to shoot back. But if it's a black guy or a Mexican or someone that's not white and they're not posing any threat, it's like they are so I'm not saying that like deadly force is necessary, but I still think it shouldn't be just words that trigger it. You have to be physically being shot at and being put in a dangerous situation. That is the only time. And even then, I still don't think they should have weapons that could kill. I feel like if they are going to use weapons, if they are going to use force, they should have weapons that disable. So I'm okay with tasers, with batons, with things that could disarm or enable a person to take their life. But to actually have the ability to take someone's life, I don't think I can go at like Tamir Rice. Like
we live in a fairly heavily armed nation as far as countries of the world are concerned. We have the most guns in the world in our country. And not the most guns per capita. I might tell you, like the Czech Republic actually has, I believe, more guns per capita, or at least more concealed carry permits per capita, so than us, which is interesting. A lot of people don't know the Czech Republic is super pro gun, but they are.
Oh yeah, I mean most of the Netherlands and European places are pro gun. They just do it. They have regulations and rules around them.
Right,
I mean,
and they have better. I mean, they have better mental health treatment facilities and stuff than we do. That's a big issue. Um, basically, what I'm getting at is because we're such an armed country, I think cops should, at the very least have a patrol rifle in the car if they're not going to wear a pistol on their hips. So I've been talking or writing some Facebook posts and stuff, just talking about alternative policing systems. And I've come up with a few different ideas, just spitballing ideas out there, because, I mean, I'd never thought that we'd be talking about changing the police system in America, but we are, and there's cities doing it, talking about defunding their police. So I can't believe we got to that point. So, I mean, I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I just think like now if we're here talking about it, we should actually talk about it, think about these sorts of things. But anyways,
I completely agree.
So I had a couple competing ideas. One of them was, so you have cops, right? Mm-hmm. The way they currently are. How about we take away most of their guns, give them a bunch of de-escalation training, make them like glorified traffic officers, you know what I mean, and like social workers, and then still have our SWAT teams and stuff, because like you're gonna need that sort of stuff. I mean, somebody's robbing a bank or some hostage situation, like you're gonna need a tactical team. Let's be real.
Yeah.
And it's not like people are just gonna stop robbing banks and stop committing terrorist acts because we defunded our police.
Yeah.
But so you either go that route where you make most of the officers like meter maids, essentially, and really kind of refocus like the idea of like what it is to be a cop. Because I think a lot of them are kind of get this idea that they're like high speed bad guy chasers, and they go out there like prowling for crime. They're like, oh, this guy could be a criminal. What are you doing? You look suspicious. And that situation escalates. Whereas maybe they should be more like firemen, where they're not out there looking for fires.
Yeah.
We call them to the fire.
Well,
and then they respond appropriately with an appropriate amount of force.
Yeah. Water.
Another idea that I have is take it a completely different way. And instead of like making the officer less than what the American police officer is, how about we make them more than what they are? We start with, an EMT, somebody who's been through, medical training.
Mm-hmm.
And then we onboard them onto the force. They serve under a veteran and learn the law and actual policing. And then after years of that, then we give them their gun, and then they become like a super cop, because now they've got all the EMT training they could possibly need, in addition to de-escalation training, in addition to tactical training. Of course, this would be an expensive person to create. It would take years and years of training, but cops do need more training. We don't train our cops enough. You look at European police forces where they have 2 to 4 year programs in their police training, whereas we have like, what was it, like, I think it's like 39 weeks or something.
21 weeks.
21 weeks. Yeah, there you go. So, I don't know. I'm just saying, someone's got to give. Either take the guns away from the unqualified ones, or make everybody qualified to the it's crazy qualified at the point where they're not. I think somebody who's sworn a medical oath, to protect life, will think twice before pulling the trigger. Somebody coming from a medical background, will think twice.
The problem with that, if you don't mind me throwing, because I've been thinking about this as well. The problem with that is that there's also still racism within the medical community. There's still racism within the teaching community. There's still like when we say it's a systemic issue, it's like it's not just the police. It's not just it's America's like institutions and everything like that. But like the way I look at it, and the best way I see this going, is when we defund the police, or as Minneapolis said, they've already defunded it. They want to disband the police, which is going to be very interesting to see how they do it, because they said they would promise to do it by the end of this year. And I don't know if that's a big promise. I don't think it's going to happen, but if it does, it'll be very interesting. But I think the best solution is not to give the police more guns or give the police more training, but make everything specialized for because what has happened over the past 15 to 20 years is the police have been given issues that they weren't trained to solve. Solve homelessness, solve mental health, solve healthcare, solve this, solve that, solve domestic abuse, deal with hostage situations. I feel like if we create systems in place like social workers, health workers, like we have a fire department that deals with fires. We have an ambulance that deals with emergencies. We should have a dispatch where we have a number, like say 911 is the general number we call, right? Well, we give them the issue, and based off the issue, that dispatcher gives us to an actual person that will actually help us with the issue, instead of just rerouting us to the police, and then the police call the ambulance, or the police call the firefighters, or the police, because it seems like it always goes back to the police.
Well, that is kind of how dispatch should work. You call 911, and then they ask, "Hey, what's your emergency?" And then they notify the appropriate authorities. The issue is that you run into these weird hybrid situations. Like, let's do you remember Manny Villegas?
Yeah.
You remember what happened to him?
No.
All right, so Manny was very distraught, mentally distraught. And he decided to end his life with a knife. And he had inflicted several wounds on himself, still had the knife, and then his panicking mother is the one calling 911. So who do you send there? I mean, the guy's like deranged and armed and also badly needing medical attention. So what happened was, the cops show up to secure the scene. They cuffed him, and then he bled out while they were waiting for EMS there.
Well, see,
so something's got to give there. You know what I mean? Like, there's nothing that really could have helped him, except possibly if the police had the training and the equipment to render the necessary medical aid. But you can't send in just like a raw EMT with no ability to apply force, because it's possible that the guy doesn't want his life saved. You know what I mean? He's going to go after the EMT with a knife. That wouldn't be good.
Well, this is where social workers
that the cops couldn't deal with.
Yeah. Well, see, this is where I believe like social workers, like people who are in the mental health community, people who are good at talking people down or de-escalating the situation, and an EMT or a person of medical aid is there by the side. For example, I'll give a quick example that happened at my place of work. We had a lady who was going to the hospital the next day. She was dropping, and she wanted to resist getting help because she kept passing out in the middle of the lobby, and she had injured herself because she was holding a glass of water and the glass broke and she cut herself. But she wanted to refuse medical aid. We ended up getting the hospital that because we were lucky enough to have her hospital information, because her hospital is the one who put her in our hotel. So we ended up getting a hold of the hospital. The hospital ended up sending out the cops and stuff like that, who came later. But the hospital were the first people to come on and talk to her into getting her to her room, getting her medical treatment, because they are the ones who understood her issues and stuff like that. Now, I'm not saying that everyone has a personal doctor or whatever, but I will say that people who are with mental health, who are in the hospital area, can have a tactical team. You can have a tactical health team, and you could still have the police deal with situations like bank robberies, murder, because we still need detectives. We could still have people deal with the extreme of the extreme, and we can still have the police do that. Still, granted, I still want the police to have that 3 to 4 years of training and actually go to college or school with criminology, forensics, at least get some basis, at least a bachelor's in understanding and de-escalation. I still want that for the police. But at the same time, I still want other institutions that specialize in specific things. When you get those vague circumstances where it's like, okay, this is handling multiple issues. You have the wife is like in danger, the person is obviously ill and has stabbed themselves and stuff like that. When you have a situation like that, that should be up to the dispatcher to have the judgment, because I feel like it's not just one issue. It's not just this is one solution. It's a systemic. It's a multifaceted issue. So it is retraining the dispatchers. It is retraining the medical team. It is creating new institutions of social workers, mental health workers, family care doctors, and other situations, domestic disputes and stuff like that. It is, and like, I don't want to make this about like other issues like creating jobs and stuff like that, but it would allow a lot of open opportunity to create these institutions, these new organizations that can help deal with some of these issues that we face today. Like, I'm not saying completely dismantle the police, but I am saying dismantle it and then rebuild it to be better. Just, I want all the police officers gone. And I say that knowing that most of my family is police officers. You know, my like friends and family, I have people within the court system as DAs. I have people within that are chiefs of certain counties. I have people who are, you know, cousins and uncles who are in the police force. And I have friends who are police officers and work within those things. But at the same time, and it's just one of those things where it's like, I get it and I feel for them, but if my own family is telling me how to avoid police officers, being a police officer, that gives me an issue. And it is one of those things where I think the only way to move forward is to rebuild. It's to take down and rebuild with new institutions, specialized institutions, reorganizing how dispatch works. And it's going to take a lot of work. It's not going to be a smooth transition. It's going to go state by state. It's going to have some testing. It's going to have some hiccups. But I think it would be a step in the right direction to give a new perspective, to give a new idea to what it means to handle certain emergencies.
So one of the things that I think this movement is going to have to really grapple with is reconciling the notion of both defunding and restructuring and retraining every police force in America. Because to restructure and retrain is very expensive, and to implement these new programs is very expensive.
Yes.
And defunding, I mean, depending on where the money is going to go to. If by defund police you mean take money from the police and use it to create these other programs, then yes. But I'm worried that a lot of these city councils are just going to, like, just the way their budgets work, they're just like not going to allocate as many dollars to the police. Mm-hmm. And then the police are still going to do stupid shit with their money, but they're not going to like make the right changes. You know, there needs to be oversight there instead of just let's just take all their money away. Because the chat was saying like SWAT teams aren't going anywhere, and yeah, that's probably true, because you know the cops love their SWAT teams. But if we defund police, maybe those sorts of expensive programs that don't see a lot of use are going to be some of the first ones to get the axe. Because I think they'd probably cut their SWAT team before cutting their own salaries. I mean, and yes, I agree. We should definitely education. You know.
Yeah.
So I wrote a post on anarcho-communist policing, and the core of it was actually treating crime as a sickness of society rather than a failure of the individual. Instead of saying you've done a crime, you're a bad person, you have to go to jail now. You know, it approaches the idea, you know, the problem from the perspective of you've done a crime. Okay, why did you do this crime?
What are the circumstances?
How are you addicted to drugs? Are you homeless? Like, why did you do a crime? And then they would, you know, approach it from that angle and rehabilitate the person from that perspective. You know, send them through a drug treatment program. And some of this stuff does exist. One of my friends went through a a federal drug treatment program.
Mm-hmm.
She went to federal prison for drug crimes.
Mm-hmm.
And she got clean as a result of that program. She attributes that program to a lot of her success,
Yeah.
which is great. That's a prison success story, but a lot of people don't have those opportunities, particularly on the state level, and with the private prison system.
Mm-hmm.
She got lucky to go to federal pen.
Yeah.
Because they had that kind of program.
Yeah. And it's just, yeah, it's a very interesting. I wanted to go back to something you said earlier, with like the switching and stuff like that. I feel like there's a lot of pressure on Minneapolis right now because they are the ones spearheading that kind of ideal. I know Chaz Seattle has kind of like shown what it could be like, but Minneapolis is actually spearheading that idea of what's going on with them and what's going on right now in the city council, because they're all discussing this right now, is they've already approved defunding the police, but they want to I guess dismantle the police, and that's what everyone's looking at. They're like, okay, well, if you dismantle it, what are the systems in place? And what they're saying is they want to restructure and reorganize and create those organizations. That's where I kind of got that idea from. I just wanted to dive into it a little further, or at least dive into what I think they should do. I haven't been part of those discussions, but I have seen some of the things through the pipelines, through the actual people who are within that legislation, come out with some of these ideas, but although very vaguely, because it seems like it's an idea right now rather than an absolute, which is going to be interesting as the talks go, or as we get more information about these things. But I feel like if anything, we're looking at Minneapolis to see exactly how this can work. Like, state by state, it's going different. California has upped the police by 33% in their budget. They've chosen to support the police and increase their funding, whereas some states have decided to decrease their funding, and some states like North Carolina are trying to do reformation again. One of the things that we've known time and time again have not worked because of the police unions. And that's another thing that we haven't gotten into, is the police unions and how strong they are and how much influence they have over a lot of the current things that are going on.
Yeah, I mean, from what I understand, it's just the one union, the one national police union, which is kind of a big pain in the ass that even exists.
Yes.
But it's pretty funny, especially when you consider that police departments often started with as strike breakers. You know what I mean? Of other unions. There were slave catchers and strike breakers.
Yeah.
So it's kind of ironic that now they've got one of the largest unions in the country. I mean, what do you expect? They're just the biggest gang,
No joke. But that just shows how long and how persistent this issue is, and how racist and in a sense how our systems, like, not broken or not failing, but rather it has always been a part of the system and we've always been resisting it, and now it's just spearheaded. I do also want to just hop in real quick. I don't want to go into too much detail about this story, because I went into it on my first episode with Janelle Banks. But so one, I am very fortunate that I look very much lighter skinned, a lot more white than I used to when I was a kid. I was actually a darker kid. But when I was 10 years old, I was waiting at a bus stop for school, and a police officer took me, threw me in the back of his trunk, smashed my head against it, and put handcuffs on me and threw me in the back. My dad was white, so I got off scot-free. The reason I'm bringing this up now, and I feel like the way I've been talking and treating a lot of these conversations with my guests and stuff like that with people, is I feel like a lot of this stuff that's going on right now, especially now of how big it's blown up, has made me reflect on a lot of the things that the people in my life have said, the way people have treated me, the way growing up, and how my father reacted and some of the things he said to me over time, that I now am starting to realize how complex and how scared it is to be a father who's white looking at their kid who's not white. And everyone, like, growing up, people would often say, "That's not my dad because he's white." It was funny, but I didn't think about it, and I would get so defensive about it.
Yeah.
But like for me growing up, I've never questioned how racist America could be, or I've never questioned the way people treated me, police officer or otherwise, because I always thought it was normal. And now, seeing all of this, hearing other people's stories, hearing different perspectives, and I have also been on both sides of the police as both victim and not victim. you know and I but like it's a very different feeling. It is a feeling of, to this day, when I drive to work and when I drive back, my heart races. Not even if I see a police officer. If I see a car that looks like a police officer's car, my heart races.
Yeah. Nobody who drives a Ford Explorer is a friend of mine.
It's like,
Or a Dodge Charger. Any you fuckers own Explorers or Chargers, training your cars, you look like cops.
because it's
That's the only reason to drive that sort of thing. You know what I mean? Like, if you're driving an Explorer with a cattle guard, you know what I mean? Like, you're just trying to look like a cop. You know it.
Yeah, I would. By the way, I would, because I know the chat is going right now as we are talking about these very serious issues. I would, if we had anything, I would love better trained police. But I feel like we have tried that over and over again. It was not even 3 or 4 years ago where we were having Black Lives Matter movement. Black Lives Matter started back in 2015. That's how crazy and old this is. And even before that, we were having protests in 2012, 2013, and 2014. It's just, I think,
I mean, it goes all the way back. Like, the police institutions are old. A lot of them are very old, and a lot of them have corruption that goes all the way back. So I'm going to tell you guys a story. It's a story that I've been sharing with a lot of people recently, because it's a story that I learned just recently, and I think it's crazy that I just learned this. I'm going to tell you about Fred Johnson. Are you familiar with Fred Johnson? Or Fred Hampton. My bad. I always call him Fred Johnson.
No.
Are you familiar with Fred Hampton?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Well,
he was the Oh no, I'm thinking of someone else. Sorry. This guy's the what was it, Black Panthers?
Yeah, you got it. He was a Black Panther. And he was assassinated by the FBI and the Chicago police. Mm-hmm. I mean, they straight up murdered. Yeah. See, chat knows. This is our only listener, I think, right now. He knows.
Yeah.
Murdered by the police in his bed. What bullshit is that?
Yeah.
And we're supposed to believe that the government protects its people, that it serves the common good for everyone. No. And that wasn't that long ago, if we're being real.
No, it wasn't. And that's the thing, is like, people think like the civil rights era was so long ago. That was 1968. That was in the height of the Vietnam War.
Fred Johnson, or Fred Hampton, Fred Hampton would still be alive. Probably still be alive. If he hadn't been killed by his own government. Maybe he'd be able to talk us through some of these issues we're having today. Apparently he was a very smart man. I don't know.
I mean, I feel like a lot of people.
That injustice really kills me there. That really kills me. So there was one video in particular that got me to start protesting, and it was just the one of the dude. He had just been pepper sprayed, and then the cop walks up and shoots him point blank in the face with a tear gas grenade. Mm-hmm. Like, literally, like, walks up, point blank, aims at his head, and pulls the trigger. Like, that just really made me mad. And then I was like, okay, time to go start protesting. Because before that, I was just kind of like a, passive observer of it all. Like a supporter, yeah, but a passive one. And we need everybody to be active. Everybody who believes in this movement should be active.
Yes. I mean, it's just one of those things where it's like, Did you see? So, do you know Chris Donner?
No.
Okay. Chris Donner was a black police officer. He was a guy who was in the military. He joined the police force. He was a straight edge guy. He believed in justice. He believed in the law. He believed that.
Oh, yeah. This guy, the guy who did all the shootings.
Yeah. Well, so what happened is he wrote a manifesto towards like Dave Chappelle, Kevin Hart, and a bunch of other people that he liked. But Chris Donner basically was this police officer who saw his white woman partner beat up a kid and use excessive force. And he stopped it, he reported it, and he got fired.
There's the thin blue line for you.
Yeah.
Ugh. That blue wall of silence. That's the sort of stuff that, I don't know. And it's so rooted in the police structure, you know what I mean? To not rat out your fellow officers.
Mm-hmm. I mean, a police officer is a gang. Like, it is just straight up a gang. It's you stand with us or you die.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe what had happened was his family got killed. Don't quote me on that. I'm just going based off memory. But I do know he got fired, and what he did was he tried every single way to get back onto the force. He tried every single avenue he thought he had, and he was left to rot. And so he ended up killing 4 police officers, and was on the run.
Yeah, he was engaged in asymmetric warfare.
He was hiding out in the woods,
and then they had that mountain cabin standoff, right?
Yeah, they found him out in the woods, and 400 police officers showed up and shot up the house or the cabin. Sorry, the cabin he was living in. That is fucking insane. Like, that is insane.
Apparently, so I'm reading the Wikipedia article. Apparently, they shot pyrotechnic tear gas canisters into his cabin.
Dang.
Like, straight up burned down his cabin while he was in it. Shortly thereafter, a single gunshot was heard from the cabin. So he probably waxed himself when he realized the cabin was on fire. He was going to burn to death in there.
Jesus.
Probably what I would have done. What are you going to do? Actually, what I would have done is go out there in the old blaze of glory.
You would have Rambo'd it?
Yeah, probably.
Oh
probably. God. I don't know. Just knowing me. Knowing how pissed off I would have been that, damn it, they're going to try to burn me alive, these bastards, you know?
Yeah.
Try to get at least one as I go.
Something. But it's just...
John Marston. Yeah, I was typing something up the other day, and I go to put a title on it, and the only thing that came to mind was manifesto, and then I was like, I should probably stop. If you're titling anything a manifesto, you've probably gone too far at that point.
You've probably hit a wall where you're like, all right, I think I've gone to the insane corner. I'm gonna take a breather.
Yeah, let's stop for a moment.
But it is just one of those things where it's crazy. It's insane how things are. And I see that, like, the guy who got you pepper sprayed got you into protesting, which was one of my earlier questions that I never asked. But my question is, since when you started protesting to how you're protesting now, because you are active. Like, for everyone who doesn't know, on his Instagram, he has been you haven't done it lately. You've been just showing where the protests are happening now. You haven't really done a lot of videos anymore, and I'm assuming it's because of the police tracking that they have now, where they're using protesters' videos to identify and track protesters and arrest them.
Oh, I didn't know anything about that. I basically just because I wasn't doing anything illegal really, but
No.
I wasn't really worried about getting arrested. It's mostly just like, it's not really a social media thing. You know, I was posting stuff at first just to like get awareness out, but I mean now, as long as I'm posting like when and where things are going down, I figure that's doing enough for the awareness.
It is, and
I think a lot of people are going out there just like to look cool. Like I saw that a lot when I went to a protest in Austin. And I mean, it was huge. Don't get me wrong; it's super cool that like their whole city turned out for it. But there wasn't like the same level of like intensity that I got out of the smaller San Antonio protests, where everybody there, hardcore believers, chanting the whole march, you know, as opposed to just like, oh, here I am at the protest, everybody, you know, let's get the Instagram shot.
yeah.
Um,
No, and I guess, yeah, it gets into the point I'm trying to make is you are an active protester. You are consistently, from what I see, just always there. You've been to almost every single protest, and I guess
they've been slowing down, and the San Antonio community actually is or at least in the last week or so, have been experiencing a little bit of turmoil. Where one of the larger kind of original groups that ran some of the bigger protests, kind of people took issue with how much they were cooperating with the police. You know, like because they were going like the complete legal route of like getting permission and showing the police like where the march is going to be,
shutting down the areas
so they can shut everything down. Yeah, then they were doing stuff like, you know, giving the police the microphone and like letting them have the floor so they can say their bit. And, you know, like one guy went and shook, you know, the hands of every officer. It's kind of like this the photo op stuff like that. A significant portion of the movement does not agree with.
Yeah, because I mean, what I've seen is, and a lot of people from my side I see with, is that it's like giving police the opportunity to look like the good guys discredits the whole entire movement and gives reason for other people to say, look, see, not all officers are bad, so this isn't a real issue.
Right. And I mean, especially if we're swinging this to defund the police and you know, swinging it, you know, it's not just Black Lives Matter anymore, you know, which is kind of the angle that a lot of it's taken is you know, defund the police. Now we have to see the police as you know, not just like a group of people who have done bad things that we should, you know, be speaking out against, but straight up the enemy whose jobs we are trying to take away. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, then that's another thing that's going to be tricky with this whole defund the police stuff is how much are the police going to take? How
much are they going to resist? How, like, because we've already seen the police come out and basically say that they will not be defunded, they will not be stripped of their badges, that they will be a police officer forever.
Right, which is kind of crazy. There was the New York police officers or at the police union meeting or whatever.
It was the New York Police Officers Union, and it was the Buffalo Union.
Yeah, so that guy with his badge, he pulls it out. This still has a shine on it.
Yeah.
You know? He's just like, there's new too. He points at everybody. It's like, just make it so obvious that you were just a little kid who wanted a shiny badge and like a flashy car, and then you worked hard and grew up, and now you've got your badge and you got your flashy car, and nobody can take that away from you, you know?
Yeah. It was strange. I have to say this. Did anyone else notice that the guy looked like Harry Winkler?
No, I didn't.
Okay, yeah.
That's funny.
There's a video that came out with one of the police guys' unions. I was like looking at them, I'm like, is that fucking Harry Winkler? And I'm like, oh no, it's not Harry Winkler, but that guy could be a very good Harry Winkler impersonator. No, but it was just, yeah, no, it's insane. It's like, because what it seems like to me mostly is that police officers want to do something just to say they did it. Like, and don't get me wrong, I I hate saying I don't hate
I know.
saying
I
this.
hate generalizing too, because everybody's different. Everybody's got their own motivations. Not every cop is bad, because they're honestly like you can never speak in absolutes in anything in this world. And while there is a straight up bone evil cop out there who joined the force straight up because he wanted to oppress people and saw that as a route, there is also like a pure hearted, hero, like true hero out there. I guarantee you he exists that doesn't have a single bad bone in his body, and he's a cop. I guarantee you that man exists.
But the
There's
problem
too
is
many
it's
people out there for
probably
that guy not to be out there.
yeah. But the problem is that it's probably one or two guys in a sea of hundreds, if not millions, of police officers, and that's
Right.
the problem. That's why we should
Right.
disband the police. So the good police officers that we believe are good police officers, the police officers that actually want to do something, can actually show up and do something. I think because a police officer, and I think people mistake the people who don't do anything as good police officers. Well, they didn't push that person down.
Right.
They didn't hurt them, so they're a good police. It's like,
Those
no, they
aren't-
still
those aren't
witnessed,
good
they still
cops.
watched, they still stood by as their fellow officer did something terrible.
The hypothetical cop I was just talking about is none of those three. None of those guys.
The hypothetical cop you're talking about is there's a
He's probably been fired.
Oh,
The
shit.
hypothetical good cop I was talking about got burnt, killed himself in a cabin after the cops set it on fire after a 4-day manhunt.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the craziest thing was, and you saw that the black senator got pepper sprayed in Brooklyn. And there was other. I remember there was other posts and other people coming out who were police officers or who were military, active and veteran, who were there standing and protesting, and they got pepper sprayed and beat up by other police officers when they were on the same fucking force.
Yeah.
It's crazy how it's like, if you're not wearing a police officer uniform, you are no longer a police officer, even if you are a police officer. It's like, what?
Well, I mean, I guess we can't complain that they're treating their people like they treat us.
It's just, it's very disorienting.
But I do hate generalizing like any circumstance. Like I even hate talking about like, oh, that cop that let me off. Like, oh, he only let me off because I was white. Like, I don't know that. Maybe if I'd been black, he would have given me the same chance, But I'm not so sure. Probably not. But I feel like saying otherwise, like I'm straight up accusing that particular officer of being a racist, and he did me a huge favor. So like I would never accuse him of that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
when we get into generalization, at a certain point, I do believe generalization has its application. Because even, for example, if that person wasn't who they say they are, the problem is it's a majority thing at this point. Statistically, I agree with the chat. Statistically, it is probably the fact that you were white. Statistically,
probably not. You're right.
Yeah.
And I know that too.
Like it's
and I know in my heart.
It is a.
I know.
Again,
I wouldn't bet.
Yeah, you wouldn't like. I think there was a. Like, if it was a 99% chance that you were wrong,
So this
you
is
wouldn't
West
take
Texas
those odds.
too. This is the middle of nowhere, West Texas.
Yeah. So, and like, yeah. I mean, and I've told other stories in my other videos, but it's one of those things where I've constantly been harassed and stuff like that, even to this day, because while I may be a lot lighter skinned, I have a beard and I still don't look like I'm white. I still look like I'm most common Middle Eastern or Mexican. And there was an instance where I drove to Laredo and I drove back. And I won't get into the details, but let's just say they thought I was a drug smuggler. And I'm like, no, I'm just a dude driving from Laredo and back. And you have been following me.
See, that sucks, because I actually was a drug smuggler and they let me go.
Oh my god, don't say that out in public. But yeah, it's just one of those
Double
things.
jeopardy, sir.
Yeah.
You already cut me free for it.
So that's the thing though, is like you get cut free. I get a ticket and I get harassed by 2 officers.
Right, and if you actually had anything, you'd be in the pen.
I'd be dead. Let's be real. I probably wouldn't have even made it that far. It's a very daunting thing for me to like come to grips with and realize. And it's a very daunting thing for me to because my father is passed away, for those of you who don't know. So for me it's a very daunting thing for me to realize all the things he said to me and how scared he was, because I keep flashing back to when I was 10 years old. And I keep flashing back to how I was treated and how lucky I was that he was there. How lucky I was that he was white. How lucky I was that he was able to talk to the officer and calm him down, have the officer uncuff me, because how lucky I was that my house was right next to the bus stop where I was getting picked up, and my dad happened to notice me, and my dad happened to be out working on the car, and how the police officer was nice enough to my father to let me go and not be arrested, not have any charges, not for it to be on my record and all this other stuff. How lucky I was. I keep thinking how lucky I was.
So I've probably got like 10 minutes left here before I gotta get going with my day.
But yeah,
just to come back around, the whole idea of like being white, being an ally, and standing up to those people in your life who are white and are not allies.
Mm-hmm.
My advice to everybody, so just a few different routes you can take with these people. When people say, "Oh, all lives matter," what you can do is you can hit them with Luke 15. Hit them with some Bible.
Mm-hmm.
Use their own medicine against them. That's the parable of the lost sheep, which basically is, you got 100 sheep in the flock. One of them goes astray, and then Jesus goes and helps the one that's gone astray, and does not stay with the 99 because the 99 are safe and are fine. And the one that has gone astray is the one that is in danger and needs help. So the moral of the story being, help the ones who need helping, not the ones who are fine. AKA, Black Lives Matter. Boom. Nailed him.
How do you...
You're right. Chat's right again. Radicalized Christians barely look at the Bible. This is true. But that's why you have to tell them this, because they don't know it.
Yeah. But I guess...
And then another route you can take is ask them, like, if they're not the religious sort, and they think they're like the more logical sort. Ask them, where do you get your news? And I guarantee you're gonna tell them they're gonna say Fox News, and like there's a lot of information out there of like straight up times Fox News has blatantly like been false and lied and like photoshopped people into places where they're not supposed to be, and whatever, so like if they're only getting their info from Fox News, you already got them right there. They're probably still not going to believe you, but at least you know that you were right. And then your third option is just straight up outright, I can't wait to do this one when my mom and her conservative boyfriend come to visit, because he was telling me, Antifa is funded by George Soros and everything. I'm just going to straight up say, I got a call from Antifa's recruiter, and guess what? I'm part of the club now, which is just funny because there's no such thing as an Antifa recruiter. It's not like they're a national organization.
You're just trolling.
No, I'm just trolled them at that point, yeah.
I think the two things that I've done, and the last question I want to ask you before I go into this, the things that I have kind of done.
But half of Europe is under Muslim occupation, by the way. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding, chat.
One of the things is, how do you deal with people like the people we were talking about earlier who show those videos or who say, I'm not racist, I'm using my digital blackface? How do you combat something like that? Or how do you like say your mother were to come over and be like, hey, listen, I've taken some thought, and this I saw this person of color show how evil Black Lives Matter is and how da 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 da, and you see this hour-long video of conspiracy. How would you talk to your mother, or how would you try and tell her, hey, listen, this is why this is false, or this is why this is wrong, or this is why I believe what I believe?
Well, I'd have to see the actual like information that she's presenting me with, because you have to fight the actual the information at hand. I would of course tell her that just because, like, if they're using like the Candace Williams video or whatever, I'd say it's the same thing I said earlier. The issue at hand is not whether or not he was a martyr worthy of this movement. The point is every person in America should be worthy of this sort of movement, if they were unjustly killed by a police officer. Yes, I know.
No. I think that was very well said.
I know. I just read chat. That's what I'm saying. Yes, I know. Because we are. I'd love to be to be past talking. Personally, I'd love to be past talking, but we're what are we gonna do? Violent revolution? Like come on. Get real. Like if anything is gonna happen along that route, it would have to be the military doing something to change everything, and I don't see that happening. I don't know. It is their world. Facts stuck in the real world is true.
So one of the things that and I'm gonna leave on this because I know you got to go. Two things that I've been doing is, one, I've been hearing what they say, and I've been explaining why certain things are the way they are, why it's not racist, or why this person is saying those things. Two, I've been showing the Legal Eagle video of the protest on Lafayette Square, because that is the biggest thing that you can see, and it's the most descriptive because it's coming from multiple news sources that were attacked and stuff like that. And then the two things I have been saying is the police are to serve and protect and not seek and destroy. And all we're seeing is them seeking and destroying our communities. Mm-hmm. And at a certain point, we have to ask ourselves, when we say the things we say, when we think the things we do, when we defend the things we're defending, are we defending the justice, the morals, and the things that we believe? Or are we defending the evils that we believe in only because we've been told to believe in them?
Right.
And
that's a good way to talk about it.
And that is something that I've been telling a lot of people. I've been getting a lot of people from Louisville who are very Bible white. I haven't met a person of color from that place yet, but I've met a lot of people from there who are white, who are conservative. And for some reason that really resonates with them, where they do take the time to think, is what I'm defending morally just?
Yeah.
Forget the politics forever, forget everything like that. Think about our morals, our ethics, and our being and what we believe in. And then look at ourselves and say, is what we're defending what we believe in?
Yeah, that is a good way to approach it. And on the subject of being past the point of talking, I mean, I think that we as allies should not give up on those people in our lives. Like I can't give up on my mom. You know what I mean? Like, I can't just accept that, and my mom is with it. I'm pretty sure she is with it. She's just so fucking Republican that, it doesn't matter, which is a totally other thing. We should talk about that some other day, the two-party system, and, how that pretty much crippled America and killed democracy, true democracy, anyway. But
that will be another podcast for another
just keep
day.
Keep fighting.
Do you want to let them know where to follow you or anything like that, or do you want to give some last information?
Yeah. I mean, if you guys can follow me on Instagram at Elcrims. That's ELCRIMS. I post local San Antonio protest information there, basically dates and times these days. And then if anybody likes poetry or music, I've got a new project I've started over at ByronicFigures, BYRONIC Figures, no space, also on Instagram. So yeah, check that stuff out if you're interested in any of that.
Cool. Cameron, thank you so much for talking with me, for enlightening me with your perspective and the way you see things, and talking about these very very intense subjects that are not for the faint of heart. I know some of these questions are a little bit, oof. But I want to thank you for your time, and hopefully we get to do this again.
Yeah, thanks, Justice. Hey, let's play some games sometime, man. If you ever stream games.
Dude, I got tons of them. Let's do it. I am
All
so
right.
down.
All right.
Bye.
Thanks, man. Appreciate you. Have a good one. Nice talking to you, chat.
So, yeah. So, guys, thank you for listening. A lot more of you are here and listening and engaging than I thought you would be. I gotta say, thank you to Wish and everyone and Choke and all you guys. Thank you guys so much for hanging out, with talking. And honestly, please check out the links if you haven't already. Please keep fighting, keep spreading the word, keep talking about it. We can't let this die down, because the moment it dies down, the moment it comes out of popularity, is the moment this thing dies, and we cannot let it die. We have to make this lasting change. We have to make this the generation. We have to make this the year, the last year, that something like this has to be forced to happen. We have to make everlasting change, not just in America, but internationally. I have links in the chat. I have links in the descriptions of the YouTube video that is going to go up, because these are going on YouTube. These are going, and a lot of this stuff is going to be for, donating to Campaign Zero and stuff like that. I will have other videos talking about other subjects that I believe in and stuff like that. I want to make this a series. I want to make this a real thing. So I hope you guys do like it. I hope you guys do support it. And I just want to thank you guys for your time, for your patience, and for listening to what we have to say. And yeah, I am going to get sleep. I have been up, and I've only had 2 hours of sleep, because I went to bed at 6 and woke up at 9. So 3 hours. Sorry, 3 hours of sleep. And I have worked in a little bit. But yeah. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.